So with that, and it's recorded, which you all should have received a notification as you logged in. This will be recorded. So with that, Boris, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you to my colleagues at the offices for running this. I am Boris Okerman. I'm the Director of Arts and Culture at the Cleveland Foundation. Next slide, please. Next. Okay, so just a little bit of an introduction. Equity in the arts existed under different names since 1994. It has granted nearly $10 million over this period, and it has been established to specifically support arts and culture created by and for people of color and organizations that serve people of color in the city of Cleveland. It's a separate fund that the Cleveland Foundation manages. It has currently $4.3 million in it, which will make, with addition of some foundation money, it will make up to something like $300,000 in grants this year in this cycle. Next slide, please. The focus of this program changed somewhat from the previous year. The focus this year is specifically on capacity building. It was also one of the supported areas in the past years, but this year we decided to focus specifically on this. So what is capacity building? What does it mean? Capacity building is an investment that the organization needs to become more stable, more sustainable, more impactful, more focused, more productive. It's a long-term investment, as opposed to, for example, a program. Program is something that you run, for example, every year. You're done with the program, and that's it. It doesn't stay with your organization. So example of a program can be, for example, we want to run a summer camp. Example of capacity building will be we want to learn how to run a summer camp, or we want to build organizational capacity to run summer camp. For example, we need program manager who specializes in summer camps. Next slide, please. So what are the other examples of capacity building grants? Improved fundraising is a very common one. Small organizations often run by their founders who are specialists in what they do, the specialists in the programs that they deliver, but they don't really specialize in fundraising. So improving fundraising can be working with a third-party consultant who specializes in fundraising, who can work with donors, who can work with foundations, helped with grant writing, with identifying relevant grants, and so on and so forth. Or, for example, very common theme for small organizations, transitioning from voluntary to paid leadership. A small organization can be run by executive directors who volunteer their time because of how passionate they are about the work, but the result of that can be that they cannot really dedicate all of their time and energy to the work, and then the work suffers. So executive directors paying themselves is increasing capacity of the organization to do the work that it wants to do. Or leadership development, for example, professional development for the executive director or other organizational leaders. Developing business plan, research if you want to learn how to do certain thing as an organization. Development of new forms of audience and community engagement that serve your communities better. Equipment purchase, and there are many other things that can be options for capacity building. If what you need to do as an organization is not in this list, you can always ask us questions and we'll have a conversation about it. Next slide, please. Other notes. In this year, the grant focuses specifically on small organizations with budgets up to $300,000 a year. And we also recognize that apart from building capacity for the organization, you also need to run it and do what you do every day. So up to a quarter of the grant can be used for general operating support. Next slide, please. And I'll go briefly over the questions of the request for proposals. And if you have any questions about any of this content, please just make a note and ask them in the end of the presentation. What is the project title and the amount you're requesting? The amounts this year run from 5 to 30,000. So you can request any number in this range. If you are an organization which is not a 501c3 nonprofit, you will need a fiscal sponsor. For example, the Assembly for the Arts. So if the applicant, and then in that case, the fiscal sponsor is the official applicant for this grant. So the question about fiscal sponsor, the second one, that organization will answer. If it's the Assembly for the Arts applying for you, they will say yes here. If you did receive the same grant in last year, please update us. What happened? What did you use the funds for? How did you, what work did you create, or how did it make your organization better? Please introduce yourself. And here I would like to ask you to be as specific as possible. What does your organization do in a very, very specific terms? For example, we do educational programs in the arts for K 8 through 12 in such and such neighborhood in town. Generic answer would be, we work to improve the arts education in the city of Cleveland. So be as specific as possible about what you do, so we have a better picture about the organization. What is the history, why and how the organization was established, by whom, what need does it respond to? For example, the need can be you work in a certain area of town where after-school art education is inaccessible for kids. Who does it serve? We understand that we don't always know exact audience, and especially with small organizations, we are limited with how much research and surveying we can do. But to the best of your knowledge, who is your audience? Who do you serve? And how big is that audience? Or how big is a number of people that you can expect to serve? And so this part is about the organization. The next part, grant purpose, is about the grant. What do you need the money for? And I would really suggest structuring it in these three parts that we describe here, and be, again, as specific as possible. What need or challenge in your work will the grant address? What is that need? What do you, what is the, for example, we need more funds, but we don't really know much about fundraising. You can write it in plain language and say, this is our challenge. We need to become better in fundraising. And this is why we need this grant. How this will grant help you to address the challenge? We need help fundraising, and we can use some money to hire a professional to work with us to improve the fundraising. How do you plan to sustain the new organizational capacity? This is very important. Sometimes organizational capacity means that you need to hire someone, a new member of staff, for example, to increase certain capacity or to do something better. For example, you can decide to hire a program manager that will manage the relationships with organizations that acquire the services of your organization, and that will eventually increase the income, the earned income of the organization. So in this case, your plan to sustain the new capacity will be, we need this money to hire the person now, but within 1 or 2 years, the income will grow, and basically that person will pay their own salary with the income that they generate. Next slide, please. And budget narrative is about how specifically the money will be used. So in project description, you said, for example, we hired that person to manage our programs. Here you will have, we need this many dollars to pay that person over such and such period of time. And this, what you will write in budget narrative should correspond to the project description. So when you say we need money for such and such purpose, this is how much money we need, and this is how that money will serve us. And additional information that is self-explanatory. And again, if you need a fiscal sponsor, if you are an organization which is not 501c3, for example, you still don't have a nonprofit status, or you are a for-profit organization that decides to engage a certain project that can justify the grant, or if you are an individual artist or administrator who is establishing a new organization and you need a fiscal sponsor, you can talk to the Assembly for the Arts, and if the service of fiscal sponsorship costs money, it might cost certain percentage sorry, of the grant, you should include that cost in the grant. Next slide, please. Tips and tricks. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to be clear, direct, and simple and concise. You should imagine 3 people reading a very big stack of applications over a very short period of time. So the clearer your application is, the clearer the narrative is, the clearer the story, the better we can understand that story and make the right decision. So again, the 3 most important points: what does the organization do in very specific terms? What is the need in terms of capacity building, and how this grant will help fulfill this need? And maybe every organization can have many needs or many ideas. What is the most urgent? What is the most urgent at this moment, and why? Next slide, please. A few other notes. There will be preference given to first-time applicants. So it's not an eligibility requirement, but if the competition is significant, we will prefer first-time applicants. If you have received this grant in the past and you believe that your mission and your work aligns with the Cleveland Foundation, we would encourage you to apply for a regular grant, and I'm happy to meet with anyone who wants to learn more about that path and give you all the information about how to structure the proposal the best. There is a deadline. Please plan ahead. We will not accept late applications. And finally, tonight at 5 p.m., the Assembly for the Arts hosts a workshop about grant writing. Please find the event on the Assembly website, and I will be there too, and I'm happy to answer any questions there in person. And with any program-related questions, you can reach out to me at this email. The email is also published at the Cleveland Foundation website. Next one, please. So the RFP has already been published. The application's due October 2nd. We will review the applications and recommend them to the Equity in the Arts Board because it's a separate fund. It has a separate board that is not the same board as the Cleveland Foundation board. We will have a meeting in November, present our recommendations to the board, and the decisions will be made. Grants can start. You can start using the grants from January and use them up until December 24th. And that was my part.
All right, thank you, Boris. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Colleen McCaughey. I'm part of the grants management team here at the Cleveland Foundation. And I'm going to take you through some step-by-step instructions regarding online portal registration, as all applications will only be accepted through our online portal. So the first step is registration. Next. So just a reminder, eligibility requirements to apply for a grant from the Cleveland Foundation include organizations that serve Cuyahoga, Lake, or Geauga counties that have a 501c3 tax-exempt status from the IRS. Organizations who do not hold a tax-exempt status may choose to partner with a fiscal agent who can complete an application on their behalf. Additionally, Equity in the Arts funds will award grants to startup, small and medium organizations with an annual budget of up to $300,000 that are led by people of color and serve, engage in, and promote the arts and cultures, both traditional and new, of communities of African, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Middle Eastern descent. Next slide. To begin registration, you will navigate to the Cleveland Foundation website, hover over Grants and Programs, and scroll down to apply for a grant in that drop-down menu. On that page, scroll down to the numbers 2 and 3. Pause here. Section 2 gives you the opportunity to request login credentials from the Cleveland Foundation. If you have never applied for a Cleveland Foundation grant before, this is your first stop. Please request these credentials as soon as possible. Once you have received your credentials, scroll down to number 3 to log in and begin the application process. And just before we move on, I just wanted to reiterate, please request these credentials as soon as possible. We do not want to have any technical difficulties that might cause you to miss the deadline if you wait too long to request these credentials. You can do it right after this meeting. We would be happy to help. Next slide. Once you have your credentials, enter them under registered users. Please note that the Cleveland Foundation now uses multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for increased security. MFA verification is conducted via phone and email. If you are unable to receive this authentication code via text, call, or email, you will need to complete a brief form to log this information. Next slide. Once you have successfully logged in with your login ID, password, and multi-factor authentication, you will see your homepage. Before beginning your application, please complete or update your organization profile located on the left-hand side menu. If you begin an application before updating your organization profile, any changes made to that profile after that time will not be reflected in your application. Next slide. Next, we will give an overview of how to access and complete the Equity in the Arts Fund application within the Grants Gateway portal. Once your organization profile is complete or updated, select Apply for a Grant on the left-hand side menu. Scroll down on this page until you find the Equity in the Arts application button. It is very important that you click the Apply button next to Equity in the Arts Fund, or you run the risk of completing the wrong application. Once you complete all sections, you will be redirected to the application summary page. A green checkbox will appear next to completed narrative sections. If you see a red exclamation point instead, there is missing information within that section. You can preview a PDF of your application on this page for review. You will see that there is currently no submit button. Your application is not yet complete. Scroll down to the bottom of the application summary page to upload required attachments, including your board list, lead applicant organization budget for the current fiscal year, and your current audit report, or your most recent financial statement if no audit is available. You may also choose to upload additional attachments, including letters of support from your partner institutions and other additional attachments you would like to include in your application. If you are serving as a fiscal sponsor for another organization, this is also where you should upload a letter signed by both parties agreeing to the relationship. Click on Details next to each attachment in order to upload these documents. Next page. Once you have completed the application questions and uploaded all required attachments, the Submit button will appear. Your application is not received until you have clicked the Submit button. You will receive an automated email when your application is successfully submitted. Before we transition to questions regarding Equity in the Arts Fund application we just covered, we wanted to take a brief moment to remind everyone here today that eligible organizations can also submit a general inquiry to the Cleveland Foundation at any time. We'll briefly cover what this looks like before we return back. So eligibility requirements, again, to apply for a grant from the Cleveland Foundation include organizations that serve Cuyahoga Lake or Geauga counties, that have a 501c3 tax exempt status from the IRS. Again, organizations who do not hold a tax exempt status may choose to partner with a fiscal agent who can complete an application on their behalf. Submitted inquiries are reviewed on a rolling basis throughout the year, and we'll now briefly lead you through the process of submitting a general inquiry, should you choose to pursue this path now or in the future. If you're applying for a general inquiry, rather than for Equity in the Arts Fund, scroll down and click on Apply General Inquiry to begin. After answering a few short questions to verify eligibility and provide a title for your project, you may begin your inquiry. Excellent. Click on each section to complete the inquiry. When you have completed all questions, click Next. Click Submit Inquiry to complete your application. You will receive an automated email when your inquiry has been successfully submitted. You also have the option to view or print a PDF for your records. If you have any questions about completing a general inquiry, please contact Grants Management directly, and we will be happy to answer your questions at any time. Now we'll transition back to Equity in the Arts Fund. So again, just a reminder, those are our contact information. Boris can answer any programmatic and RFP questions, and I would be happy to answer any technical questions, portal registration, navigating the online application, etc.
And with that, if there are any questions, we can pause for a second so that people can put them in the Q&A function. And if not, I will leave it for ease though, even though we're in a Q&A period with the contact information. If you don't have any questions at this time, but as you're reviewing the RFP, have questions, please feel free again to reach out to Boris if we've not covered that information here today. So if nothing comes through in the chat or in the Q&A, then I believe that we can conclude.
Boris, anything else to add before we close out today?
Looking for my unmute button still. Thank you everyone for being here. Again, happy to answer any questions. And to emphasize Colleen's points, any organization can apply for a regular grant anytime. We don't have deadline, it's a rolling deadline. I would recommend talking to us before you apply. We can guide you through the process, but also through our priorities and what would make the best sense to apply with. With that, thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.